I'm so excited to share with you one of the books that I read recently that absolutely opened my mind on what's going on in my mind. So the name of the book is called Your Brain is Always Listening by Dr. Amen. And I actually was able to see him speak 2 times before. He's got quite a few books actually, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, and some books and series on ADHD and healing your ADHD at home. Needless to say, he's got a ton of content out there, and he's one of the leading resources when it comes to studying your brain. So when he released a book about taming your inner dragons and, controlling your automatic negative thoughts, he calls them ANTs, also known as automatic negative thoughts. I was like, I have to read this book. And I'm really glad that I did, because the book does a lot of discovery in helping you understand why we think the way that we do and how we can change that. You can almost think of it as you have this unruly child inside of you, also known as the voice in your head. And sometimes things pop up in our head and we say things, whether it's positive or negative, we can't always control it. And he challenges the thought of, why do we have to believe what just popped in our head? We don't have to believe that. In fact, we should absolutely challenge it. So a big portion of the book is on how to control automatic negative thoughts, but then also helping us source what he calls your inner dragons. If you ever followed Brene Brown and some of her content, she calls them gremlins, but it's along the same line. Some of the patterns that we have, and he helps you identify your dragons. In fact, if you're going to read the book, definitely go and take the dragon test so you can see what are some of the dragons that you might be carrying around and how can you overcome them to be the best version of yourself. In terms of actionable items, first of all, read the book. It's absolutely worth it. But I wanted to share with you my biggest takeaway on how I was able to take something from the book and put it into my life right away. It actually is all around how to get rid of those automatic negative thoughts, those ANTs. And I actually just experienced this recently. I was having a little anxiety around something that I was getting ready to do. I was having a lot of negative thoughts about myself, right? Saying horrible things about myself. If someone talked to you the way you talk to yourself, you'd probably punch them in the face, or you'd kick them out and you'd never let them come back. Yet we let our mind, and he actually says, you need to train and discipline your brain. And so I put right into act what he did. So the first thing is if you have a negative thought. So let's say I have a negative thought is, oh, I'm so worthless, right? That's, maybe that's a thought that you have, like, oh, I'm such a loser. Let's go with that one. So the thought is, I'm such a loser. And I'm thinking that. So the first thing you need to do is you need to write down what it is that you're thinking. So I'd write down, I'm such a loser. Identify how that makes you feel. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel, insecure, frustrated, right? So there's the negative thought. I write it down. I identify it. And now I'm going to tame that thought. So this next one is you have to ask yourself, is this true? Is this absolutely true? So I'm such a loser. Is this absolutely true? Okay, no, I'm not a total loser, right? Like I'm going to start to unravel this thought that's, making me feel bad. So no, it's not absolutely true. I'm not always a loser. There are things that I'm actually pretty good at sometimes. So no, it's not absolutely true. And then the next thing that he has you do is he has you flip that thought, like completely flip it. So what's the opposite of being a loser would be a winner or someone successful. And so, I'm successful. Is there any evidence that I am successful? Well, yeah, I've got a great career, I've got a great business, I've got lots of friends, I love my family, okay. Now all of a sudden there's a bunch of evidence that I'm not a complete loser, right? So then the last thing that you do is since we identified the statement, I'm such a loser and how it makes me feel, what would I feel like if I didn't believe that I was such a loser, right? Well, I'd feel good. I'd feel confident. I might try new things. Okay, well, let's roll with that, right? So basically, just to kind of summarize it, in the book, he gives so many examples, and honestly, it takes practice to kind of discipline and train your brain to do this every time a negative thought comes up. But essentially, first you're going to identify the thought and, how does it make you feel? Then you're going to ask, is this true? Is it absolutely true, right? And then flip it, right? Do the opposite of it. Is there any evidence that the opposite of that is true? Well, yes. And then identify, well, how does that make me feel, right? And what would I do, and what would it look like if I wasn't dwelling on that negative and I was dwelling on this other one? And then roll with that, ruminate, think about that thought instead of the other one. So I hope that you put this into practice. The book is absolutely phenomenal. He's got a ton of resources online to go with it. In fact, he's got a podcast and a YouTube channel. So if you're not already a fan, I promise you will be after this book. And I hope that you tame your inner dragons and you squash all those automatic negative thoughts.